If you're new to the series, welcome and go back to week 1. Today's episode is the pivot point and you'll want the full context. The Awakening Trigger Map quiz, the Wired quiz, is in the show notes. It's free, it'll take you 4 minutes, and it maps exactly what's driving your nervous system reactions in your parenting right now. The link is in the show notes, remember. So I want to start with a question that I've heard more times than I can count from parents who love their children deeply, who've read the books and done the work and made the conscious choice, who are genuinely trying. The question, is this actually the parent I am? Not the theoretical parent, not the one in the good moments or the calm moments or the moments where the regulation actually holds, the one that appeared last Tuesday, the one in the car, the one at bedtime when everything has already gone wrong and then went more wrong. Is this who I actually am? The answer is no. That is not who you are. That is a nervous system in fragmentation running the oldest program it has. But here is the more important question, the one that changes everything. Are you willing to stop asking how to manage that moment better and start asking what is actually driving it? Because that shift from management to understanding, from strategy to curiosity, from how do I fix this to what is this telling me, that is the awakening. And it's the most important moment in the entire cycle. Welcome back to The Family Architect. I'm Philippa Scott. This is week 4 of the Mother Awakening arc. Over the past 3 weeks, we've mapped the cycle. We've gone deep into accommodation and its particular trap for intentional parents, and we've sat with fragmentation, the stage where the load hits critical mass and the inherited patterns take the wheel. Today, we've reached a pivot point, the awakening. This is the stage I find the most difficult to describe, not because it's complicated, but because it's alive. It's different for every person who moves through it, and yet it always contains the same thing, a moment of genuinely seeing that cannot be undone. I want to do this episode justice, so I'm going to slow down. In the Mother Awakening cycle, the awakening is the 4th stage, the turning point between the pain of fragmentation and the possibility of reclamation. The awakening is the moment a parent stops interpreting their experience as a performance problem and starts recognizing it as a developmental signal. In the moment they stop asking, how do I manage my child's behavior better? And start asking, what's actually happening inside me that is driving this? That is a profound shift in question, because the first question, how do I manage this, keeps the focus external. It puts the focus of the problem in the child, the circumstance, the level of skill. It positions the solution as a better technique, a better response, a better strategy. The second question, what's happening inside me, puts the focus of the work exactly where it needs to be, in the nervous system, in the pattern, the inherited program running underneath the good intentions. Most parenting content lives in the first question, an enormous amount of it. And it's not useless, but it is insufficient because it treats the gap between knowing and doing as an information problem when in reality it's a nervous system problem. The awakening is the moment a parent recognizes the difference. For intentional parents, the awakening tends to arrive carrying a particular quality of grief. Because here's the thing, you already knew you wanted to do this differently. You made the decision. You read the books. You understand attachment theory and nervous system regulation and the neuroscience of emotional development. You have been in many ways trying harder than most people around you to show up differently. And yet, there you were, in the pattern again. For parents who've invested so much in doing this differently, the discovery that knowing isn't the same as changing, that insight alone cannot rewire a nervous system, it can feel like a profound betrayal of the work you've done, of the person you thought you were becoming. I want to sit with that grief for a moment because I think it deserves to be honoured rather than bypassed on the way to the next useful thing. Grief is evidence of how much you care. It is evidence of the gap between your values and your current capacity. And the fact that gap exists doesn't mean you're a hypocrite. It means you're a human being with a nervous system that was shaped long before you had a choice in the matter, trying to parent from values you developed as an adult using a system that was wired as a child. That is not a moral failing, it's just the territory. And the awakening is the moment you stop fighting the territory and start mapping it. Let me describe what the actual awakening moment often looks like, because it's not always dramatic, it's often quiet. Sometimes it's reading something, a description of a pattern, a framework, a sentence that lands with a particular quality of recognition that feels like someone has described your interior life from the outside. This series may have done that for some of you. That is an awakening moment. Sometimes it's a conversation with a therapist, a friend, a partner, a stranger at a workshop that moves something that's been stuck. Sometimes it's watching your child, noticing something in them, a coping strategy, a way of shrinking a particular response under pressure, and recognizing with absolute clarity where they learned it, and understanding in the same moment where you learned it too. Sometimes it arrives as rage, as a refusal, as a flat no from somewhere deep in the body that says not this way, not anymore. Whatever form it takes, the awakening always involves a moment of genuine seeing, of a pattern becoming visible that was previously invisible. And once it's visible, it cannot be unfiled. The seeing is irreversible. I want to say something that doesn't get said often enough because I think it's critical. The awakening is the most powerful moment in the cycle. It's also the most vulnerable. And without the right support, without a framework, without a methodology, without somewhere to take the seeing, the awakening can lead to places that make things worse, not better. Some parents, when the awakening arrives, bypass it. The seeing becomes briefly available, produces too much discomfort, and the system retreats back into fragmentation, back into the management strategies, back into the pushing through. The window opens and closes, and the cycle continues. Other parents reach the awakening and mistake the seeing for the work. They gain insight, often significant insight about their patterns, their childhood, and their nervous system. And they believe that insight is the change. They understand why they parent the way they do. They can describe the pattern with fluency. They just can't stop doing it. Because understanding is not regulation. Insight is not resolution. Knowing why the pattern exists doesn't automatically rewire the nervous system that runs it. This is the distinction that sits at the heart of everything I do. The regulated mother method is not an insight program, it's a resolution program. The work is not understanding your patterns. The work is changing the nervous system substrate they run on. The awakening opens the door. Reclamation is what walks through it. I don't want to leave this episode in the difficulty without naming what the awakening actually makes possible, because it's significant. Before the awakening, generational change is an intention. After the awakening, it becomes a possibility. Before the awakening, you are managing the gap between the parent you want to be and the parent you are. After the awakening, you understand the gap well enough to actually begin to close it. Before the awakening, the work you're doing is largely on the surface: strategies, responses, techniques. After the awakening, you know where the real work lives: in the nervous system, in the pattern, in the place before choice. And you can take the work there. The awakening is the moment parenting by design becomes genuinely available, not as an aspiration, as a real possibility for this specific person with this specific history in this specific nervous system. Because you cannot design something you cannot see, and you can see it now. Beneath the exhaustion, beneath the fragmentation, beneath the gap between who you want to be and who you are in hard moments, something else is happening. Motherhood is asking you to awaken, to see the patterns that shaped you, to reclaim the parts of yourself you abandoned in accommodation, to step into a different kind of leadership inside your family. Not a loss of self, a transformation of self. That is what this moment is pointed towards. Next week is the final episode, Reclamation and Integration, what it actually looks like on the other side, what the family architect actually means in practice, and what conscious generational change looks like when it's lived rather than theorized. If this episode landed for you, if the awakening has been arriving and you've been trying to find somewhere to take it, the regulated mother method is in the show notes. It's the methodology that lives between the awakening and the reclamation. The practical nervous system work of actually changing the patterns, not just understanding them. That's the work, and it's available to you. The link is in the show notes. The Trigger Awakening map there, or recently renamed the Wired quiz, is there. And if you want to understand what's specifically driving your reactive moments, start there. It's 4 minutes, you'll get some real answers. Share this episode with a parent who is in the seeing. They need to know that the seeing is the beginning, not the end. I'm Philippa Scott. This is The Family Architect. The final episode of this series is next week. I look forward to seeing you there.